Hello and welcome. Dr. Pauline Baird here, telling the stories of my village Buxton in Guyana. I'm a cultural bearer. I tell the stories of my village, our family traditions, our whispered stories, our practice hidden and sometimes long tradition story. Oh, what the story say? Our dark story. This story today comes from Buxton Sideline Dam. I'm going to talk about Mother Adams. Her full name is Clarabelle Adams. And she was the grandmother of teacher Cheryl Glenn of Buxton Village. You know teacher Cheryl Glenn? Ayana Austin mother, Candace Austin mother, and Natasha Inson mother, that same Cheryl Glenn. Cheryl's mother was Shirley. Shirley was a twin. And they were so many children from Mother Adams. Mother Adams had 12 children. So, I interviewed Cheryl a couple of years ago to tell me her story, women's stories. I asked her, what stories do you tell your daughters? Because I am curious about how our stories are transformative and how I can trace the trajectory of how we are becoming. We people who are ancestors of people who were trafficked from Africa. How have we been? What kind of stories are we telling? And this is the story that Cheryl tells me. Cheryl's mother, Shirley, used to clean houses at a bauxite mining town. And Cheryl lived with her. Cheryl was a very smart girl and very ambitious. But the thing is, Cheryl got pregnant early. She was a teenage mom and she got pregnant at the age of 17. She had already written her subjects and was on the up and up, wanted to go to this engineering school and all of that. But this baby came. So her mother felt like she was going to lose her daughter. And it was so important for her. Shirley got Cheryl at around the age 21. And that was her second child. So she wanted better for her child. And so this story I'm going to talk about is a story of ambition. What does that look like? Shirley's story that gives us meaning for that. Cheryl says, my mother used to say, you Dana, let me tell you this. Me mother was a water girl in the estate. That's Mother Adams. My mother was a water girl in the estate. This means that back in the day, Africans used to work on sugar estate, carrying water for the people who cut in the cane. Because cane cutting is not a thing that they used to do with harvesting. They used to got to go and cut it physically, chop the cane after they burn the cane. Very, very dirty work and very hardest work. But she was carrying water for the laborers. That was what the grandmother and Cheryl's mother's mother used to do. And Shirley thought that she elevated herself in becoming a domestic helper. She came out of the estate and she was in the homes working for people, right? And after that, she moved one step closer to self-actualization by becoming a market vendor. A market vendor is an entrepreneur. There is dignity in labor. She's not putting down Clarabelle's work. She's not putting down the domestic work. Those are the hallmarks that show us the map of how we become. And Shirley became a market vendor or an entrepreneur. And here is this daughter who has all this potential, who probably been to school, had more education than Clarabelle and Shirley together, became a teenage mother. And back in Guyana, when you become a teenage mother early, they say you're gone for China. You're gone for China. That means your life wasted. And Cheryl was determined not to waste her life. But Shirley's word of caution gave her more impetus to become more than her forebears. So she said, tell her, I became this vendor and you must do better. So listen to this now. So we got Shirley's story to her daughter. Cheryl now tells me what she tells her daughters. She tells her daughters, you see, me grandmother was an estate worker. Me mother was a domestic helper and a market vendor turned up entrepreneur. And I became a teacher. I want better for y'all. I want better for y'all. So it's not that she's casting aspersions or looking down on other jobs, but she was looking for upward mobility and social status that education brought. And a lot of people of African descent in our village are about that, to the point where sometimes it seems that we focus more on academic education rather than the other kinds of education, vocational education. But that's something for another day. Cheryl's narrative adds to the understanding of how we grow big, what it takes to grow big. Growing big is aspirational, but there is no guarantee. There's no guarantee, right? Cheryl's mother challenged her, and she in turn challenged her own daughters. And what I see here is 3 generations of women having a story that sets them on a path for growth and for the passing down of generational knowledge. You see, we talk about generational wealth, and oftentimes we think of it in terms of finances or hard cash. But if we can show our children how we became so big, that's wealth in itself. Because a lot of times they tell you to do things, they don't tell you how. They don't show us how it's done. And so what she's done is open vistas for success so we can look in and see. I want to ask how you go so big, what it took for you to get where you got to. You know, I talked to so many women about their life paths and their life trajectories. Some people had very humble beginnings. Let me talk about the homes we come from. You know, some of us come from homes where the crease between the board is like fairy light when you turn on the light at night. You put on the flambeau, it flickering. So flambeau is a battle lamp and with a little wick inside, and it flickering like that. And if you're outside, you think it's fairy light, like Christmas light inside the day. And some people, when you didn't see the Christmas light, it's not because they didn't have holes in the wall. It's because they plastered the wall with newspaper. How many of us read the news off the newspaper at your grandmother's house? Yes. Some of the greats come from homes where the wallpaper was the Chronicle newspaper and the Graphic newspaper. From there you learn to read. Nowadays, people have no excuse that they can't read. Long time people used to borrow newspaper and learn to read. They paste it on the wall so they can read. That's a trajectory from where you are to where we're going. You know, there's so many people who talk about how they had to get secondhand books. You know, back in the day, when you get your passing paper is your promotion paper, the paper that said you're promoted to the next grade. And with the passing paper come a book list. And the book list get all the names of the books that you have to have for the new school year. My mother and other people's mother used to go around the village with the book list. And they get it from the cousins and the neighbors and so on. Oh, you got to get this smart book? Oh, I got this. And they passing on the books. How you grow so big. What kinds of moves your parents or your mothers had to make so that you can have an ambition that pushes you towards the betterment of yourself, regardless of what you turned out to be. Let's talk that story. There's so many stories there. Let's not even go to the food. Don't even go to the food. You know, bread and butter, cornmeal porridge in the morning, rice pap in the morning, or your hot swank. That is what you're filling up with, and that's your fuel to go on this trajectory of ambition, because they're telling you that you got to do better than we. So when we think of mothers, we want to think of those people at the village level who instilled in us certain kinds of ways of thinking, because sometimes we think they're disgusting, they're only talking. Well, that's a mother's job, to talk to us, because in the talking they're giving us a kind of generational wealth that we can carry with us, because you know and I know that in the quietness of our mind we remember their words. Remember I told you about those immortal mothers? That's how they do it. They talk and they plant seeds in our heads. They talk so that we can recover those words. We can not only recover but retrieve them, because they're planting them in the archives of our mind so that we can retrieve them and take them on our journey. You see what I'm saying? So how have women in your life, those mothers and grandmothers, aunts and nenen and makme, how have they influenced your life and set you on a path that you can look back on and find the moments, the defining moments of when you made changes in your life or tweaks in your life that set you on the path you're on today? Loud talk the thing, walk good. Next week I'm going to tell you another story about Mother Adams. So tune in Sunday on What the Story Say. Facebook and YouTube.